All right, welcome everybody. This is the Disability Ministry Video Roundtable, easy for me to say, for the month of February 2023. And today we're going to talk about how our churches can better engage with those whose primary form of communication is not verbal communication. So I am really excited for this topic. I can't wait to learn from you and just have a great discussion. So my name is Beth Golick from Key Ministry. My colleague, Catherine Boyle, who is the Director of Mental Health Ministry for Key Ministry, is here. And I'm just really excited to have everybody here today. So I do not have any kind of personal agenda for this today. I know that there are several of you on here who have personal experience with this topic, either yourself or a loved one. And so I just want to open it up. Okay, and I'm going to read from the chat. So somebody who has joined us today is Abigail Brown. And so we've been communicating after another conversation that I had with another ministry leader. And when I mentioned we were doing this topic, she said, oh, you have to have Abigail on. So I'm going to read what's in the chat, and that's how we'll open up our discussion today. So in the chat, she says, my name is Abigail Brown, and I'm living with a condition called dystonia. I've been living with dystonia for 26 years. Dystonia is a condition that causes my muscles to contract and twist involuntarily. From age 4 to the present day, I've been able to communicate with others by using AAC devices and a communication app. Okay, sidebar. Now I'm going to say, so AAC, I always thought AAC meant the actual device. AAC actually means augmentative and assistive. No, what's the other word? I think it's assist. But anyway, it's something like that. But what it refers to, communication is the third word. What it refers to is all the nonverbal parts of communication. But AAC devices are a really important part of that for some people. Okay, back to the chat. As a kid, I didn't have very many friends my age at my church. I mainly talked to my parents' friends because they would ask me questions about my life. When I graduated high school, I started serving in the 5th grade girls' Sunday school class. I've always wanted to help in the kids' ministry at the church I attended, to help kids learn about the Bible, but also to show them I am just like everyone else. It just takes me a minute to say what I want. Mm-hmm. I have been serving in that class for 11 years now. Wow. And I have stayed connected with many of the girls. Some of them have graduated and are in college now, which makes me feel old. I get that. As a teenager, my parents taught me to initiate conversations with the 2 friends I had to make them comfortable and show them that I was approachable. I don't think that's a bad thing to do, but it would also help if typical kids/teens and adults were taught to speak to us AAC users in a respectful way and tone of voice. Yes, I may look like a teenager or younger, and if you look on your screen, you'll see Abigail. Please don't make a big thing out of it. Oops. I'm sure I look younger than a typical adult. But when people say things like, really, you're 30? I thought you were 18. It's very degrading and makes me feel insecure. There are several people that say hi to me at the church I attend, but only a handful will actually seek me out to have a conversation. AAC communicators like myself want to be included, and that includes one-on-one conversation and group conversations. Also, please be understanding if you invite us to come to an activity and we don't come. Please keep inviting us. And I think that extends far beyond just, this one segment that we're talking about, segment of disability. Reach out to us and text us if we happen to miss church. I enjoy texting. That's the main way people get to know me. And it doesn't have to be a deep conversation either. Just let them know that you were thinking about them and ask, is there anything I can be in prayer with you about? Because I know I have other things I'm concerned about besides living with a disability. I feel like I'm always initiating conversations in some of my relationships. I know that's normal with relationships, but it gets frustrating at times, especially when typing is the only way you can communicate. I recently had a person ask me on a podcast this question: what is the most challenging thing living with dystonia? This was part of my answer. When it comes down to it, learning to communicate with others is one of the most challenging things. It will be a lifelong challenge in ways because I'm still learning how to express and articulate my thoughts and opinions while having emotions and remembering how to spell words at times. As much as I am thankful for the advances in technology, I can't cry and talk like others can. Plus, there are times when I get tired of typing out everything I want to say. As a nonverbal communicator, using technology will always be the way I communicate. That's just reality. Imagine if you had to text everything out with just your thumb. So that's a good perspective right there. Like, gives us a good kind of frame of thought, a frame of reference. So so thank you very much, Abigail, for sharing that. And I think that's a great conversation starter. And let's just open it up to conversation. I mean, I have some thoughts, but I want to open, I need a break from talking. So who would like to ask a question or share something? I'm looking around. Brooke, is your hand raised?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brooke Brown from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm a volunteer with Johnny and Friends, Arizona. They often ask me to share my testimony with church inclusion in their disability ministry training workshops, and I always use this quote from Johnny in the Beyond Suffering Bible. Disability does not negate that truth. Even gifts that seem less noteworthy demonstrate God's character. The church needs to make a special effort to provide opportunities for people with disabilities to use their gifts and talents. When we do so, God is glorified and the body of believers is edified. To do this, churches need to learn to always assume competence. A typically able person should strive to approach a person with a disability the same way they would any other, get to know them by asking questions, seeking out common interests, and listening to their experiences. If cognitive challenges do become apparent, find out what accommodations need to be made. Even many of those with cognitive limitations can sense when someone is being patronizing. I'm blessed to attend a church with a thriving disability ministry. The director always asks in her volunteer trainings, a typically able person making the presumption that a person with a disability can understand everything said to and happening around them when they ask really can't. Or someone noticing another person's disability and jumping to conclusion that their physical limitations automatically makes them not cognitively aware. It's important to talk about what the Bible says about disability with the church as a whole. Doing this has given me an opportunity to serve the church. Even though I use an augmentative communication app, I've been asked to film the church announcement video several times, shared my testimony in the Easter service, and I led my own Bible study group. It comes down to looking for people's gifts regardless of what limitations they have.
Brooke, thank you. That was excellent. So just thank you both for sharing. So I'm hearing so many things in here that I want us to talk about. I mean, there's so many things. One of the things though that like really struck me is like you both are serving in your church. Like you are 11 years teaching, what is it, 5th grade girls? Like, that's amazing. Kudos to you. And Brooke, like being able to give your testimony on Easter Sunday, wow, that's amazing. And recording the announcements, like that's really cool. So like that's such an example of, I mean, clearly you both are gifted, but like, are we recognizing and encouraging, fostering those gifts in everybody? And, you know, how can we, I don't even know what I'm trying to say here, but how can we like create that environment in our churches? Like, does anybody want to jump in here? Because apparently I'm failing at words today.
Just one quick thing, and then Meekins, you know, we talk a lot within Key Ministry about, particularly in mental health ministry, about the mindset or the approach or the perspective. I mean, that is so important, because if you get that part right, then, you know, you'll figure out, no matter what a person's abilities or disabilities, if they have an interest in serving, you'll figure out a way to let them serve.
Right.
So
and Abigail shared in the chat, it doesn't get acknowledged. Yeah. All right, Meekins, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm surprised I had my hand up.
Usually Julie beats you to the punch.
What's he saying?
Totally blessed by Abigail and Brooke. And I know the way is hard. My thought and my question is, how did you get where you are now? Because it's a hard way to break into the church so that your gifts can be used to praise the Lord. It looks like both of you have never given up, even though rejection's always there. How do you do it? And it's a perseverance thing, is what I'm seeing.
All right, so Brooke has her hand up.
When I was growing up, I went to a different church than I do now. And I was the only person with a disability in all of the student ministries. And I had to be like, hi, this is who I am. So I had to show people that I'm actually all here. And what? And it took time. Now I've been at the church that I'm at now, I've been with for over 15 years. And our special needs ministry leader has a master's in disability education, special education. So she kind of took me under her wing. And made me feel okay about speaking up and asking, hey, can I help?
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So what I'm hearing, like at first the onus was on you. So
Mhm.
you had to be the one to, like, people weren't necessarily reaching out to you,
Mhm.
you know, hey, let me learn more about you. It was more like,
Mhm.
I need to educate them. And I think I heard that a little bit from you, Abigail. When you were suggesting like churches could be better at being the ones to take the step to learn more and welcome individuals with disabilities.
Mhm.
Yeah. That was a good question. And thank you for sharing, Brooke. What else? So Abigail has said, I just asked if I could participate in the kids ministry. I knew there was an opening as a helper in the 5th grade girls. Yeah, and my guess is there's always a lot of openings in children's ministry if my church is any example. So good for you for reaching out to them. Sylvia, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation. And I just wanted to share that I think a lot of times churches, I know probably, I know at my church, a lot of times we want to make people fit into our environments as opposed to creating an environment that accommodates and makes room for the individuals that come in that are different. And we're all different. I take ownership for my differences and how I have to, like Brooke and Abigail, speak up a lot of times that I do exist. I'm not just the special needs ministry in the corner. We are an integral part of what is going on in the church, and that it's not a matter of making everybody fit into what we are doing, but create a space that's comfortable for every individual.
Thank you, Sylvia, for sharing that. Yeah. Julie.
I wanted to say thank you so much to Abigail and Brooke, because you are creating an environment in our home right this minute in helping us to know how to inspire our daughter to take the reins and jump forward with what she has to offer. So I want to thank you very much. She's 28, and Brooke, Abigail, you'll appreciate this. She looks like she's about 12. So, and that is the bane of her existence as well. She hates that everybody thinks she's a child. So we get you. I just want you to know that. But I just wanted to say thank you for helping us to understand a little bit better really what she's struggling with and how to help her. We think we know, but we don't know 100%. You guys know. So I appreciate having you. And the other thing that I heard you say, I think, Brooke, was there was an individual who took you under her wings. And I think sometimes we just need to understand it only takes one person. And if we can inspire as leaders in ministry, if we can inspire other people to jump in and give them the confidence to do that, it can make, look what you're doing, Brooke, with the world. I mean, look what you're doing for this community and for yourself and for the people that get to know you. What a gift and a precious gift it is, because this person cared enough about you personally, because she saw you. She saw what you have. I get a little bit passionate about these things, but she saw who you are, not your disability. And that's what we all are here. That's why we're here, so we can get inspired by that. So thank you, beautiful women, for what you just shared with us.
And that is an example of the encouragement that we all get on these roundtables from Julie and from others. And just a side note here, we do an idea share each month. So it's the first Monday of each month at noon Eastern time. And we don't have a topic for that one, but it is a time of encouragement from people like Julie. And so everybody that's on here today, we invite you to come back on the first Monday of each month for more encouragement. So yeah, but I agree with everything that Julie just said. Thank you. Who else has a question or wants to share? And we're on 2 screens now, so I'm Catherine, help me out if you see any hands up.
Is that Lori?
Corey.
Corey, yeah.
So one of the things our church is really struggling to even begin a disability ministry. And so I always come to listen to all the ideas of people that just are walking through this. And one of the things that I'm really encouraged by is how visible Brooke is. Because I feel like there's no question that we have people with disabilities in our congregation. But one of the things that our church is really reticent to do is display that or talk about it from the pulpit. And it's just really encouraging to see other churches with people with disabilities in very visible areas, because I think, at least from my perspective, it feels like having people with disabilities being visible is inviting in and of itself, because then other people can see, okay, these people are doing all these things. These people are participating in all the ways that I would like to, but I don't really know how to even engage. And I want that badly for us, but it's very encouraging to know that it can definitely be there, definitely be a possibility.
Yeah, that is such a good point, Corey. Thank you for sharing. And this is big, you know, and Catherine, I'm looking at you because this is big with mental health ministry too. Like, recognizing from the pulpit is pretty huge. I also think, like, what an incredible opportunity for churches to realize how much they would have missed out if we're not encouraging people to serve the body of Christ with their gifting. Yeah, and so Corey, I hear you. Like this is, I think, like our hearts for all of our churches, and how do we get there? Yeah.
I think the testimony video is a really good idea, because it's something that you can do ahead of time. You can kind of plan for, you can kind of set it up, you know, with the emphasis that you want it to have. Not to make it, you know, scripted, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, I think you guys all get kind of where I'm going with that. And that's a way that, you know, there can be communication from the pulpit. To your point, Corey, you know, whether we're talking about a disability that's visible or a disability that is invisible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Catherine. Amanda. Where'd she go? There she is.
Yeah, so I'm here. I just wanted to chime in. My church, I'm really fortunate. They do, you know, occasionally bring it up from the pulpit. You know, different offering stories. They'll highlight different ministries, including the disability ministry. But I just wanted to encourage people when it comes to different ministries. Like, so I'm part of like the student ministry, and you know, there's been instances. We have a young man who attends who uses a communication device. He's nonverbal. What, I don't know if that's an okay thing to say. Actually, he communicates with the communication board, and he has autism. And you know, there was an instance we were going around a circle. Every kid was going to share like their name and their age and what school they go to. And the leader didn't assume competence and skipped him. And I was his buddy. And we really have to, as buddies, as leaders, we, you know, I didn't let it go. I had the awkward, hard conversation. And I was so frustrated. Like I was in tears, and I got myself together, and, you know, cause I just, like all of you, I'm sure, like I, you know, have a lot of fire in my belly about this kind of stuff, and inclusion and assuming competence. And, you know, so I didn't make a huge deal of it right then. I was just like, oh, wait, we skipped this friend, and let's go back. And then, you know, when that student wasn't there, we had a deeper conversation and required some training. And we just have to, be willing to have those hard conversations. And people are, like, genuinely, from my experience at least, they're not trying. They were trying to they didn't know how he was going to answer. And they didn't want to make him feel bad. They didn't want to make him feel like, well, he's not going to say anything and then I'm going to put him on the spot and it's going to make him feel uncomfortable. But and just skipping him, they made him feel. And so like having those conversations about assuming competence and then, training and doing that's my job. And so, and I'm happy to do that. But it's hard, it's awkward, and you got to get your own feelings and emotions and everything in check, because it's like, I'm not going to go in here guns a-blazing, and throw a fit. But just educate, because they weren't trying to leave somebody out. But that is hard. And this is something that our disability ministry is long-standing, and it's large, and people are talking about it from the front. And we had students that use like a communication device and have done stuff like announcements, sharing he is risen on Easter. We had a student that's that used that had a testimony at his baptism. Anyway, like lots of really cool things, but still people like they get in those intimate one-on-one situations and they're like a deer in headlights and they don't want to make anybody feel bad. So
they're like good in theory.
Right. Like, oh yeah, I know. But then like, yes, this one-on-one interaction. So then there's like a lack of community. Like, yeah, we accept and we understand and we are inclusive, but like there's, just breaking through that barrier of real community. Like, oh no, you can actually be friends with this person. You can actually have a conversation with him. You can, break through that and discover something new. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing, Amanda. And you got a little shout out from Abigail in the chat. So she says, good for you. We sometimes need an advocate for us to stand up for us. And that's what you did. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Rebecca.
Hi, so I'm brand new to the disability ministry. My church is launching one in March, and so I'm helping with that. And I just wanted to kind of add something to what Amanda was saying. I actually have a 16-year-old who has autism, and he has very, very limited language and a lot of sensory needs. And one thing that I have noticed that a lot of people may or are not aware of is when he enters a room, like if I came in with my whole family, they would say hi to everyone except for him, because of, I guess they just either don't know how to interact or maybe they don't think that he is listening. So that was just something that I'm trying to help my congregation be aware of, but just something, I don't know if you all have experienced that as well.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Like that's a great start for like training and awareness. So if we felt like our congregations and maybe our staff, our volunteers need better training, whether it's awareness, maybe it's technical, like how do I have a conversation with somebody who uses an AAC device, which that's not that technical, but let's just whatever. But maybe that's like a great first place to start. Like first thing first, say hello to each person, not just the person who is going to verbally respond, because there's so many more ways to communicate. Faith, your hand is up.
Yes. I attend a church that is very small. And I actually attended a church before that, which was much smaller. And we, at that church, I have a son, but both of my kids actually are diagnosed with autism. And my son is limited verbally too. And he was, I would say, the similar situation. Nobody kind of said hi to him. And they actually, in a weird heart way, I don't know where their heart was actually, but he was, given a separate room, but he was the only kid in there. And I've seen this before where they're like, they're distracting. Because for my son, he runs around a lot, right? And he's gotten better about not better, but as he's aged, he has settled down a little bit. But at this new church, we've been there since he was probably 4, I think, and 4 or 5. And they're just like, I just loved that church as soon as I walked in, and it was a smaller, but they have a thing where it's nobody fights alone. And so they have different struggles that everybody's had to different, not like a struggle, but like we've had a variety of people either with mental health or disabilities, or just they accept everybody. And I am definitely very vocal. And so since I've been there, not only have they like talked to me and always said kind of hi to Jackson since he's little, and they still say hi to him. But I've always been like, and I've been in the children's ministry and I've just been like, okay, this is my son and this is what I need. And like, I've just always been very expressive about that. So I have, it has been like a self-advocacy kind of thing, going in and advocating for him and my daughter. But I feel like their hearts were always in the right place. They just needed some coaching, right? And so we don't actually have a disability ministry, but they're just always saying hi to everyone. And so just as you teach them, okay, he can understand this, like you said, assume competency kind of always, assume that they can listen, even if they're a little boy and doesn't want to listen. But like I said, I feel really blessed. I don't want to say it depends, obviously, on what kind of church you go to, or if they like grow with you, maybe. But it's sad that the church that we went to when he was initially diagnosed, just wasn't as accepting and just kind of segregated us. And this one is a very inclusive church. So I don't know if that's it's helpful for anybody, but
No, thank you, Faith, for sharing. And I'm really glad you found this church. It sounds amazing. And you know what I love about you all on these Zooms, we represent so many different churches, and we represent some really small churches. We represent some really, really big churches. And some have, quote, disability ministries or special needs ministries, and some don't. And yet, like, this shouldn't be a program. This is a mindset. And so, Faith, what you've described so beautifully is how this is actually like working in real life, coming alongside your family. Like, I love that. So thank you for sharing that. Who else would like to ask a question or have a comment?
One of the things that I have seen today, as each of these individuals has spoken about their experience of how powerful that is for each of us. I know with the students that I have who are doing some kind of exceptional things compared to their peers with disability, when that's being put out on social media, people within our church see it, people outside of our church see it, and it starts with like a level of amazement, and then it goes to more curiosity. Oh, first I want to affirm them that they're doing this, and then it's when I see them, oh, I want to get to know them. They're willing to take a risk and put themselves out there, so I can put myself out there too. And I think that's one of the ways of using social media in a very good way, as opposed to the way it often is so divisive of us. Let's celebrate these wonderful things where they're happening. Even though we would like to see much bigger steps, let's celebrate every step we get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Abigail shared in the chat, I think this was to Faith's point. It reminds me of the verses, suffer with those who suffer and rejoice with those who rejoice. Yeah. All right, I'll put a little plug in for something. So I don't know if you heard it or read it, but so the podcast, the Key Ministry podcast episode this past week, so the one that's like the current one right now, this was the topic. So, and you know, that was just my little like entree into this. So I really appreciate learning from everybody today. So Catherine has just shared in the chat, it's keyministry.org/podcast. But that might be something that could help other leaders, other volunteers in your church, just kind of get a basic understanding of, you know, what nonverbal communication looks like, and just kind of raise awareness of, you know, how we're missing out, our churches are missing out if we are not engaged with folks whose primary mode of communication is not the spoken word. So please do check that out. Julie.
I feel like I want to put a plug in for the podcast too, because I feel like what it does for me, and I think it does for other people, is it's kind of like, you know, when you light a match and that initial spark, I think it just kind of gets our minds around things that we might not normally think about. And then, you know, then it just puts you on fire, because then you've got this little spark inside of you and then you're like ready. And I feel like this particular podcast was that. And I would be here anyway, because I just love being here. But I would think that if somebody listened to that, the kind of the spark that you gave in that particular podcast, that they would want to know more. And that's what I love about the podcast. Catherine, when you share the things that you share, same thing. It's just, you know, a little spark to get us going, introduce a new idea or one that we haven't thought about for a while. And isn't it true that oftentimes when that happens, God then puts in front of you something you're supposed to do about it? Okay,
Yes.
So it might be a person that's dealing with that, or it could be, you know, a talk that you need to give, or whatever it is. And then you're equipped. So thank you for what you do in that podcast.
Oh, thank you. And that is so true. Like, yeah, that's the Holy Spirit at work for sure. Yeah. All right. Any other last questions, thoughts, comments?
Can I share a little bit of what we're doing here?
Yes, please, Deanna.
I have with me Linda. She's a coworker here at the church in a different department. She raised her family in the church here. She has, in one side of the family, 4 grandchildren that are all on the spectrum. So, you know, they've been living in the trenches of this, and the oldest one just turned 17. And the 2 older ones are unreliable speakers. They do have some words, but they're not effective for conversational speech and communicating what's really in their heart. But they learned a method that just rocked their world and has inspired us at the church, which is using letter boards for their communication, taking the communication out of the fine motor where most of us do it, and putting in gross motor with just an arm and shoulder action. And there's a process. They didn't just jump right into this and write a new dictionary, but like Linda's oldest daughter ended up graduating 2 years early and is in university studying neuroscience, journalism, and education. That I thought was a very unique characteristic in Grace, that she was a genius trapped inside this body. But the more people we're carrying this out with, the more we're seeing she's not alone. She is not alone. And most of these guys have been listening and taking in their whole life and not had a way to give it back. And some communication devices are helpful with that. And some of them are limited by how much creative thought they can communicate with that. But with you got 26 letters of the alphabet, you can say anything you want, much like those who have communicated today from typing. But again, that's more of a fine motor thing. Our churches embraced this partly because the kids have grown up here. And like the first Sunday we came back after our COVID shutdown, Grace, the oldest daughter, got baptized. She made her profession of faith on the letterboard. And she had heard and understood the gospel long before her parents had any idea. They didn't know until she told them on the letterboard. I heard the gospel and I accepted the Lord amidst the invitation. And we all went, amidst? What kind of word is that coming out of you? You know, little did we know what was in there. But in this case, this is a trainable thing that, I mean, they've sent me for training for this, and I can now I'm working with a number of the students in our program here and hoping to grow that outside of our immediate circle, but reaching in the community, because we have a huge number. Autism is the biggest disability within our ministry here at the church, and that reflects what's in the community around us. So there's a lot of opportunities for that the church can either do like ours did, send somebody to be trained in it, to be able to work with multiple people, or possibly helping to help scholarship families where in a lot of areas, this is not covered by their government funding and things like that. So it becomes an out-of-pocket thing when we can help with that. There is a movie going to be coming out somewhere shortly. I know it's at a film festival the end of the month. Yes, the Reason I Jump is out, and you can see that now.
Josh just put it in the chat. Yes.
Yeah, I just saw that as I was speaking it. The Reason I Jump has been out for a bit, and they reflect on this method as well as some others. And the one that's going to be coming out is just called Spellers. And I can put a link for a trailer of that in the chat if you want. And we're going to be doing a screening of it here, hopefully at the church, because we have a good opportunity for audience. But the more people are exposed to the opportunity that comes with that, then the higher demand for people who can help walk with them through that.
Right. Wow. So thank you for sharing. So what an incredible wake up call for people. So the whole idea of non-speaking does not mean non-thinking. We need to presume competence, and what opportunities are being missed if we are not recognizing just all the, not just the gifting, but the Grace it was Grace that was baptized. She was getting she knew the message. She just couldn't communicate to you before that she understood and was ready to accept Jesus as her savior. So let me go to the chat for a second. So Josh shared, see the movie, The Reason I Jump on Netflix, and the new movie coming out, Spellers, showing the genius of many that people assume are not competent because they don't use spoken word. So I will be adding both of those to my to-do list, my watch list. And Beth shared one of her issues with her church is that people say hi to her daughter, and so they feel like they're accepting and being inclusive. So it's that first step, but then what? Yeah.
So that's a place for us then to speak up. When we're around when that happens, or a parent who is around when that happens, to show them what the next step is. Would you like to ask my daughter anything? Or just modeling it for them, because again, we don't know what we don't know.
And the conversation with regard to social media, my granddaughter Grace, who's 17, who's at Belmont University, made the dean's list the first semester. She has an Instagram page called Grace This Is Me, and she expresses herself on that. And she's gotten lots of followers and lots of people who are now understanding the depth that she has, how she can express herself, and the level of emotion and feeling that she has behind wanting to be an advocate for those who are in the same situation that she's in. And here at the church, participating with Dina in the letterboard activities, the being able to experience a parent. I don't know if I can say this without emotion because I've got the 4 grandkids on the spectrum, and I know what it's like to feel hopeless that you'll ever be able to hear their heart or understand what's going on in their head. But to be able to see a parent's eyes light up and to know that they realize there's hope. I can actually hear my child's heart and hear what's going on in their head and feel their emotions and know what their dreams are and what they would like to do. It just opens up a world of opportunity for the parents then to become a very strong advocate for their child, because now you have hope and you believe that they can do whatever they want to do, because just because they can't speak it doesn't mean that they can't do it. You know, my granddaughter is majoring in education with a minor in neurology and a double minor in journalism because she wants to be an advocate for those who are non-reliable speakers just like her. And her brother is exactly the same. He's still in high school, but my daughter's trying to prepare a path for them to follow for both of them. And it's really hard from an advocacy standpoint. You have to be tenacious and really go after it as a parent. And as a person who loves the children, you know, grandparents, who good family friends, everybody can have advocacy and can, when my granddaughter is around and people talk to my daughter instead of to her, how does she feel about this? What would she like to major in? My daughter will get the letterboard out and say, why don't you ask her and let her speak? Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. And as Amanda said, girl, you are safe to cry here. So yeah, let's have a real quick, yes. Okay. What from the chat. Yeah, I totally did not realize that The Reason I Jump is on Netflix. So Josh, thank you. I agree with Amanda. Thanks for that tip. I'll put it on my queue. Let's talk before we're about to wrap up, but I would like to hear from people, because the language of disability is something that, like, that's something I'm passionate about. I know we all are. Like, I know we don't have across the board words that everybody agrees on, but what is the best practice? Like, what's the most honoring way to refer to people whose primary mode of communication is not the spoken word? And I'm opening this to everybody, would especially like to hear from those of you who fall into this category.
I don't really have a problem on verbal form of from most people. I don't really consider myself nonverbal. I tell people I have speech limitations.
Okay. Thank you, Brooke, for sharing that. So then in the chat, Abigail has shared non-speaking or nonverbal. So like we have a couple different choices here. And then we heard non-reliable speakers. So just, I guess, different. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, great. So in the chat, and we will put all of these links when we post the recording of this video, which you can find, you'll be able to find like what maybe by tomorrow on Vimeo, on YouTube, but also on the Key Ministry, on the video roundtable page. So Deanna shared a link, a news story about her student Landon, that Grace, the student we were talking about, Grace, this is me, is her Instagram handle. We've got the Spellers movie trailer. We've got a book recommendation, Underestimated, An Autism Miracle by JB and Jamie Hanley. A video of Gregory Tino, his story with S2C, and includes a clip of his first time he communicated a fully independent thought on the boards. Ooh, that'd be good. And then Elizabeth, oh, I think I've seen this one. A news story of Elizabeth Bonker, who gave the valedictorian speech at Rollins College. So thank you, Deanna, for sharing all those. We will put them all in the, yes. And then regarding the language, Abigail has said you can also ask what they like to be called. So there you go. All right. I just want to say thank you to everybody for being on here today. This was like so incredible for me to learn from all of you. And I always enjoy our monthly conversations. So I invite you to join me back here next third Wednesday of March. I know what the topic's going to be, so we'll get that out soon. It's going to be a good one. And also just a reminder that you're all invited to come to the Idea Share, which is the first Monday of each month at noon Eastern time. So thanks again, and come to our conference, Disability in the Church 2023. Early bird registration is available through the end of this month, so take advantage. That's all at keyministry.org. So thanks, everybody.